I'm Rosamund Zander, and I am a coach, a writer, a therapist, a painter, and a curious person.
Cool.
I'm Ben Zander. I am the conductor of the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra and also conductor of the Youth Philharmonic Orchestra. And I teach. I'm also a coach in a sense. I work with young people a lot. And I have a coach. And my coach is sitting next to me. Everybody should have a coach. It's an essential part of life. Pavarotti had a coach. Michael Jordan had a coach. Who are we to think we can manage a life without a coach?
Well, you said something that I absolutely love, because I don't think anybody should be professionally coaching, or actually really living, but professionally coaching without their own coach.
Yeah.
Because who are we to coach someone else if we're not willing to be coached?
Yeah.
So I think we're on the same page about
We're
that.
already on the same page.
You said that you're sort of a coach. What does that mean?
Well, what I mean is I don't primarily think of myself as a coach. I'm a conductor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a teacher. But teaching and conducting both involve coaching, in the sense that if coaching is a separate distinction from teaching, which it may not be, it is you're taking responsibility not only for the instrumental, musical, and emotional development of your players, but you're also engaging with them in how they're being in the world, what their posture is in the world, how they walk through the world. And that takes coaching, because it doesn't happen through technical mastery. It happens through a shift of being in the mind and in the heart. And so that's why I think of my life as partly being a coach. And I'm very conscious that I am exceedingly coachable. It's one of my greatest gifts, and that I have a great coach.
I'm just one of his great coaches, may I say. Yeah.
I don't think there can be too many,
No.
and for different purposes.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Russ, what would you say about your coaching and what it means to you?
Well, my coaching has all to do with a kind of clarity about the model we've developed, which is the art of possibility. And I don't actually try to change people at all. I mean, that's a kind of a commonplace in the coaching world. But I don't, I feel that if people understand the model, then they'll have all the choice in the world as to where to move and do what they want to do. So I go into companies and I train the C-suite, as they say, the management,
the term,
in the distinctions of possibility. Then I ask them to do things within that model, and then things work out rather well that way. But I don't worry about what they need to do. I just keep myself straight on all the aspects of life that are included in the art of possibility.
So if I understood correctly, and I love this, I have to say, it's right in line with me, you're going in and you're giving them a framework within which to do what they choose to do in their own development.
Exactly.
Okay.
The framework takes a little time to teach them, so I could work with them for 3 or 4 days and they'd just be getting it at the end of that, because getting the framework isn't an intellectual, as Ben was just saying, it isn't only an intellectual thing, although it is that, but it actually transforms the body, it transforms the emotions. So I will actually, if I'm having, if people are in a company are about to give a presentation, I'll tell them to walk in the door. And then I'll tell them the story they're living in, because you can see it all over them, and ask them if that's what they want to do in the presentation. And let's clean that up so that they can walk in as possibility.
And that's exactly the same coaching that a musician would need.
Would have to, yeah.
Yeah. A singer who's singing a song, if he's slouching and feeling anxious and pressured and inadequate, that will come out in the voice.
Right.
And so although a lot of the work we do is with specifics of technical things to do with the way the voice is produced or the way the players play. A great deal of it is to do with who they are being. And one of the strategies we've worked out, which is very interesting, I came home one day in despair from my teaching because I was dealing with some young professionals who were in that very anxious state of just about to go into the profession and fearing that they weren't good enough, worrying about the comparisons with others and the grades and the competitions and the auditions and all the things that they were worrying about. And of course, poor Bach and Handel and Schubert and Chopin were suffering terribly.
And it wasn't their fault.
No, because there was this wall between them and the music. The composers need the performers to bring their message into the world. So I came home with that problem and I spoke to my coach and I said, what do we do? And Ross said, well, this is what you should do. You should give them an A at the beginning of the year, right, before they get their grade. Before they do anything, they get their grade. But then the thing is, that wasn't enough. Then we came up with the idea that they should write a letter early on in the year, in the first 2 weeks, in which they describe who they will be by the end of the year. Right? So the date at the top is the date of the end of the year, the following May. Mm-hmm. Then they write, Dear Mr. Zander, I got my A because, and then they write a description of who they've become. And it's difficult for them to do that because it's hard for them to leap out of the present anxiety and pressure and competition into an idea, a vision, a possibility of who they will be. And then when they've done that and they've fulfilled that task, I then come into the room to teach the person that is described in the letter. And that means that I only take A students. That changes my life because everybody loves to teach A students.
You know, resistance to possibility is one of the strongest resistances. So people have difficulty saying, the students have difficulty saying, well, I was playing on Carnegie Hall stage at the end of the year. They, oh no, I can't do that, you know, I can, and they try to get it within what they call reality. But Ben is fabulous at getting people to just drop that. And he says to the students, fall in love with the person you describe in the letter. So it's all about love and
there was one of my students who wrote about her new husband and her child that was coming, and she was so excited about it. Well, it turned out she hadn't met anybody.
Wow.
This was an invention, but it was a beautiful thing, and it lit up her life. And she was exuberant and joyful, and walked with a spring and played with exuberance. Sure. As somebody deeply in love with a child about to arrive. I mean, she was taking the game a little further than I'd imagined, but it is a game.
No, absolutely. And what I'm hearing is that you're creating this space, and you're creating. Go back to framework because that's the word that you're creating a safe container where people can stretch themselves in a way that they wouldn't have been able to before. And also where they can see how they're limiting themselves. That's what I'm hearing. And that's incredible because then it opens the top. Leaping out of that
world. And if you put it in the future, it has that, once they get it, because at first they say, well, I hope I will, and I intend.
Maybe I will.
Yeah, and
it's all in the syntax. We make sure that they write it in the past.
Right. Mm-hmm. This is what they actually did. And I was completely fooled by this girl. I assumed that she was a happily married woman.
Okay. Tell me a bit about the structure and about the art of possibility as a frame.
Well, it's getting everywhere.
Okay.
It really is getting everywhere. It's amazing. I mean, just, you know, where I travel a lot around the world, and wherever I go, I see people reading the book and knowing the book and stopping.
Can you define it for me?
Well, for many people in the coaching world, they might be familiar with what's known as Constructivist Therapy. That is, that people construct their lives, they create a story, either known to them or not known to them. You know, it's a story that's coming from things that have happened to them in the past. Their conception of reality is really a narrative. And I just read the man who wrote The Holographic Universe said, if you can't tell a story about what you've done, it didn't happen. I thought that was fascinating. I haven't quite checked that out yet, but it's a very interesting idea. So we do live in a story, and I think what's happened, what we did with this model is we really expanded that idea so that we shake people loose from the notion that there is anything real out there, that is all filtered through a story. And I always quote Steven Pinker, whom Ben does not like me to quote, saying, there's no reason to believe that what we see bears any resemblance whatsoever to what's out there. See, that to me is very inspiring. At least
I'm sorry.
You see, I know these coaches are going to love it.
It just occurred to me.
Well, that's like the young woman who invented that she was a married woman with a child. So it's off the edge of it's at the edge.
So that's the floor under which the art of possibility blooms. And we distinguished something called the downward spiral, which isn't really a downward spiral, it's just life as usual.
Including upward spirals.
Yeah,
winning and losing and
just life as we experience it, given our propensity to need to survive and the way our perceptual systems are made, that we think that what we see is real. So what we're doing in the art of possibility is backing people up into a way of seeing the world as a production. So you get an extra self in there. And then what do you want to do with that? And then we have all these practices.
That's right. I mean, the thing is, the question is, what do you do with it? The perception is a wonderful perception.
You open the perception, but then what's going to happen
What
next?
happens next? So there's a wonderful story that my father used to tell when we were little children. He said, the man went to the rabbi and said, Rabbi, you told us a prayer, but with praise, something with praise. And the rabbi said, yes, it goes like this. When you have some good news, you thank the Lord. And when you have some bad news, you praise the Lord. Yeah, that's right, I remember. But Rabbi, how actually do you know which is the good news and which is the bad news? And the rabbi says, you're very wise, my son. So just to be on the safe side, always thank the Lord. Well, that is wonderful coaching, because we make up our mind instantaneously how something is going to end up, and that it's bad. We designate this is bad, and then we act accordingly. But we actually don't know. We have no idea. It might end up wonderfully. Like, I was so furious upset because I had this wonderful sale of my new CDs just come out. And it's the most exciting CD I've ever produced, and then we got the company to buy 600 copies. And it was great, and there was the first sale, and they were going to do it. I was just in Miami. But the CD arrived late. So they cancelled the sale. So where did they go? Into my garage. I can't get into my car. However, Roz said to me today, but we're going to the coaching federation today. Why don't you take the CDs and see if anybody would like to buy? So now the coaches at this conference are all going to get the opportunity to buy at cost CDs that otherwise would have been in Miami. So there's some good news.
We couldn't have set it up better.
No.
I couldn't have set it up better. But I needed the catastrophe in order to get the result. So if we were really disciplined in life, and coaches could really help with this, if we were really disciplined, something would happen, and it wouldn't be a good thing or a bad thing, it would just be a thing. And then we would say, what's next? That would be the discipline. Mm-hmm. And it would take enormous discipline to do that. My marriage just broke down. What next? Or whatever the thing is.
Well, we can't leave emotion out of it.
No.
Not entirely.
We come in parts.
Yeah.
And the part that's emotional has its own breathing, its own unfolding. And the story has a different unfolding. I mean, you can change the story easily, and then the emotions will be going in this direction, and they'll veer slowly around to follow the story.
Yeah. Well, we separated 33 years ago, whenever it was, and I remember saying, I was very, very upset. I mean, rightly, the marriage broke down. And Roz said, but Ben, we're going to be related for the rest of your life. Once you're related forever.
And that was a story I
Yeah, it
told.
was a great story.
But
I
think
bought
it's
it.
a pretty good story.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
We
'cause
went
I
to the
was,
Aspen Institute and told that story.
Yeah.
Remember, right after that,
Yeah.
that relationship is,
Right.
it can't be broken. We all act as though relationships can be broken. But you all know in your hearts that it can't be. So might as well make the very, capitalize on the fact that relationship is forever and build the proper relationship, the one that works for the people at that time. I don't mean forever, but just at that time, what is the relationship that really works? And we did that, and we've continued to do that for 30 years. And it changes.
No.
Well, and embedded in that is that things are always changing,
Yeah.
and that it is a story, and that if you don't have that flexibility, then you're trying to hold something that can't be held.
You sound just like Rose.
Well, good, then I have a new friend. I'm happy.
I've heard her say those very same words
I'm
many
just
times.
thrilled because you're saying things that make so much sense to me. I have a couple of things I want to make sure I get for the benefit of the members. If I were to try to describe the model, the art of possibility, what would be the definition? What would be the best encapsulation that I could use?
Why haven't we ever really done that before?
It might not make sense.
People get very confused
No, it
about it, and they think people call it positive thinking. It is absolutely not positive thinking.
Okay.
Positive thinking is part of the downward spiral because it's pretending things are good when they're really shitty. And that's stupid, actually. So it's not positive thinking. And it is not the art of the possible, which is what a lot of people think. That is, the art of the possible is politics at something. So it's a domain, it's an environment in which you search out. There's an amazing story. It's not a definition, but it's a wonderful
It's
story.
okay.
60 Minutes. There was a 60 Minutes show on the Japanese catastrophe with the nuclear power station.
Mm-hmm.
And they interviewed a man who had lost everything. He'd lost his house, he was just devastated, and he'd lost his wife and his parents and a child, I can't remember. And during the interview, he was smiling a lot. And the interviewer finally said, "Excuse me, you've lost virtually everything. How come you're smiling?" And he said, "Do you see that green plant?" And the camera went down, and there was a little green part poking through the planks of the demolished house. And he said, "I'm smiling because of that plant."
Isn't that beautiful?
It's a beautiful story. I've just, tears in the eyes.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
so possibility is seeing. There was a lovely story, another similar story of a woman who I knew, a very lovely woman. Gerda Klein was her name. She was in Auschwitz. She was 6 years old, and she found a raspberry growing there, one raspberry, and she put it in a leaf, and she put it in her pocket, and she kept it for the whole day, and then gave it to another 6-year-old who she knew. And what is the world in which you have one thing, and you keep it in your pocket and give it to somebody else? We call that the world of possibility.
It's lovely. And I'm going to push a little bit, just because I can. You said that you go into companies and you teach this. How do you tell them what it is that you're going to teach them in advance?
Well, generally they've heard about it in advance. They've
Okay.
read the book often.
Okay.
So that helps them.
It's usually leadership, isn't it?
It's usually leadership. I think it's all, we don't advertise in any way. So it's everything that's happened has just been by word of mouth. So what
You couldn't advertise this, actually.
it's very,
No, you couldn't.
I talk to companies about Ben coming to speak there, and they want to know, they want the outline.
No.
Can't be.
Sorry.
And I do the best. I just talk until they get inspired,
Okay.
and then they move on.
When their eyes are shining, then we know we're in possibility.
Yeah, I wanted to say something more about how you would describe the realm.
Well, maybe I can go a different way. What do they have an expectation when they come into a training in a company? Or what do those executives say to the people that they've invited to the program?
I don't know the answer to that, but I
Okay.
do know that they have expectations, and they tell me all the problems,
Of course.
and they want they want a vision, which I very much like to help them get. My favorite is this diamond mining company that I worked for in South Africa. And I thought of them as my 7 dwarfs because they were huge men, all of them, of all different colors. And they'd all been through a lot, you know. And
a lot of suffering.
A lot of suffering, yes, and a lot of political upheaval and
conflict.
Yeah. So they were wise people underneath it all. And I simply worked with the CEO first and to find out what he wanted, and then made that clear to the group. And I said, I'm going to teach you a way of thinking first. And then I run them through that, and I have a film that shows Ben doing wonderful things, and everybody's so inspired by the end of the teaching that we can get to the problems. And then we make up various solutions, and I work on the A if they have some problem with another company or within the company, we can resolve it that way. So it's pretty easy to do. But I remember in that company particularly that one man said, this is the best business experience I've ever had. And another one said, this big guy who was in security started to cry. And he said, nobody's ever said, I love you in a meeting before. Well, I happened to let it out because I loved them so much. So it's a different experience for these people because it's so authentic.
And they can feel it.
And they feel it.
Yeah.
You're an amazing interviewer, you know, because you are in the conversation. You're not outside it, which is the normal experience. You talk to somebody who's outside looking in, and you're inside sharing. It's lovely. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you. I shouldn't, but I will. One of my favorite coaching clients I got because I did a presentation in a business meeting, and the man came up to me at the end and he said, I have no idea what you just did, but I want that.
Harry,
it was my favorite. And it was like, you can't give me a better compliment than that.
Yeah.
And so I think I get it. We have these lovely ladies sitting here with their project, and they've given me a question. Yes. And
singing and dance cover.
They are working with health and wellness coaches, which is the sort of the frontier of coaching, I think, and one of the newest. And the question they gave me is that health and wellness coaches help guide their clients towards practicing healthier lifestyles and mindsets. And their question is, how can your work enhance those efforts?
You know, it's very interesting that you say that, because when's January, when's September, 9 months ago, Roz said to me, and you understand we don't live together, we're divorced and so on. She said, Ben, you're too fat. Exactly, I made a face, exactly, I went like that. She said, you need to lose weight because you are the embodiment, as you go around, you are the embodiment of possibility, and you cannot look the way you look. So I went to the gym and I got a new diet and I lost 30 pounds. I got myself a trainer, I went every week. I never miss a training session. This guy is amazed, he said, you amazing, you never miss. Since January, 3 times a week, wherever I am.
And it's true, he does.
And I do that. And it's very interesting because I would never have thought that. I knew I didn't feel so good. But when I say Roz is my coach, what she means is that there's a pathway for human beings. We are a contribution in the world. We are parents, we are friends, we are workers. And in order to be effective, we have to be healthy. We can't really I can't stand up in front of an orchestra and be a slouch. I have to embody the music. And so thank goodness somebody was willing to say that, and thank goodness I was able to find somebody who I trusted to take me on that path. So
I'll add one piece. Thank goodness you heard her and we're able to understand it.
I'm extremely coachable.
Yeah. It's rare.
Now, who is the wonderful doctor who wrote on the back of The Art of Possibility?
Oh, yeah.
What is it?
Wonderful.
Does anybody have a copy?
Yes. It's actually worthwhile. Just get a copy of the book because it's actually a wonderful phrase. Northrop.
Yes, Christiane Northrop.
Christiane Northrop. You know who that is? Yeah.
And she said,
"It's in my bag."
And Bonnie, please, thank you. His bag.
It's in my bag.
Where is his bag?
Is that in here?
Christine Northrop. To read this book with an open mind and heart will improve your health.
Yeah, that's what she says.
There you go.
Yeah. Bonnie, never mind. We've got it close enough.
To read this book with an open heart and mind will improve your health. So it goes both ways. It's the being in possibility, by definition,
will improves your health.
Will improve your health.
There's your starting point, ladies. Thank you. Thank them.
That's great.
Good.
So, and of course, it's not a book. It's not reading the book. It's being in possibility. It's a way of life.
I thought a lot while I was writing it about the rhythms of the language, because it has to come in as an experience. It can't come, and that's what a novel can do. But usually, when you write books that are in the self-help or whatever this is, business or whatever, people aren't thinking about how the language translates, what the language does to the pores in your body. So that was a big interest of mine. And every chapter starts high and goes down to a low point and then takes off at the end.
Like many pieces of music, do the same thing. The exposition, the development, and the recapitulation of the coda. So this is the exact words. The very act of reading it with an open heart and mind will improve your health. Christiane Northrop, MD. She also says, one of the most inspiring, practical, and uplifting books I have ever read. That's in addition.
Just one last question that occurs to me. I'm fascinated by the different views people have given me on what they would recommend first to someone who is coming into a coaching practice, to build a coaching practice. What is important for them to be thinking about? What is important for them to keep in their mind as they start out new in this field?
Get over themselves.
Yeah. Rule number 6, we call that.
Yeah.
Rule number 6.
Don't take yourself so goddamn seriously.
Good.
I would say watching Roz, who I think is a master coach, is being available, really being available, not being stuck with a preconceived notion or a set of practices that you have to stick to or ways of listening. Just be available to whatever is happening there at the moment, whoever it is, and respond to that.